The first rays of dawn had barely crept over the rooftops of Brookside when Sam Delgado's alarm jangled him awake. He rolled out of bed before the second ring, swinging his legs over the side of the mattress into worn work jeans and a faded t-shirt stamped with last year's Best Local Service Award. A quick splash of cold water on his face and a cursory glance in the mirror showed the same determined eyes he'd inherited from his father and grandfather, both mechanics whose tools now lined the walls of Brookside Auto Repair like trophies of a lifetime's labor. By 6:45 a.m., Sam was behind the wheel of his battered pickup, idling outside the shop's corrugated steel doors. He took a deep breath of the crisp morning air, relishing the promise of a new day. Engines to tune, brakes to adjust, engines to coax back into purring health. He clicked the remote, and the garage doors rumbled upward. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of motor oil, rubber hoses, and the lingering aroma of yesterday's coffee. He flipped on the fluorescent lights one by one until the cavernous bay glowed with hard, white illumination. "Morning, Dad," he said to the framed photo on his office desk, an old black and white shot of his father in coveralls, wrench in hand, standing proudly beside a classic coupe. Below it, the shop's motto was hand-painted in scuffed red letters, "Quality first, always." He headed to the tool wall where a dozen color-coded sockets and wrenches hung in neat rows. The shop's rhythm was already in motion. The hiss of an air compressor cycling, the thrum of a transmission jack being prepped, and the distant whine of a polishing wheel. Mia Nguyen, his 17-year-old apprentice, was already at a lift by the far bay, replacing an oil filter on a delivery van. Her ponytail bobbed as she worked, and beads of sweat glistened on her brow. "Morning, Sam," she called without looking up. "The van's almost done. Brake pads on Bay 2 are ready for inspection." "Thanks, Mia. In 2 shakes, I'll be on it." Sam yanked on a pair of insulated gloves and strode to the van. With practiced efficiency, he jacked up the rear axle, slid under the chassis, and began his inspection. The suspension components were in decent shape. Bushings worn but serviceable, shocks still firm. He worked with a quiet intensity, his fingers dancing over lug nuts and brake assemblies as though each vehicle carried its own unique heartbeat, signaling for help. At 7:30 a.m., the bell above the front door jingled, his first customer. Mr. Bennington, the retired schoolteacher, shuffled in, greeted Sam with a warm smile, and explained a troubling rattle in the steering column. Sam nodded, took detailed notes, and promised a 2-hour turnaround. "Don't you worry, Mr. B. We'll have you back on the road before lunchtime." The man's relief was palpable, and Mia ushered him to the waiting bench with a fresh cup of coffee from the shop's self-serve station. Back under the van, Sam finished tightening the final bolt. He swung his legs out, wiped grease from his hands on a shop rag, and consulted his whiteboard schedule. 7 a.m. delivery van oil and filter. 7:30 a.m. Bennington sedan steering rattle. 8 a.m. Mrs. Patel's minivan brake pads 9:00 a.m. Tune-up for customer in Bay Yor. He clicked his tongue. A full morning, but manageable, until the unexpected happened. A deep growl of a luxury engine cut through the shop noise. Sam straightened and looked up. Through the open bay doors, a low-slung obsidian black coupe rolled in, its glossy finish reflecting the bay lights like liquid obsidian. The car's custom carbon fiber spoiler and oversized alloy wheels marked it as something more than a run-of-the-mill sports model. Behind the wheel sat a man in a finely tailored suit. The second the door shut behind the car, he climbed out with a brisk, measured step, tapping a designer watch as if unwilling to waste a single second. He surveyed the shop floor, tools, lifts, banners, proclaiming family-owned since 1954, with a mix of annoyance and entitlement. Sam felt a flicker of irritation. He approached, gloves still on, and offered a polite nod. "Good morning, sir. You must be here for the 9 a.m. tune-up?" The man's eyes flicked to the whiteboard schedule. "That's what my confirmation says. Yet here I am, standing in line. Care to explain?" His voice was cool, professionally clipped. Sam's jaw tightened. "I've got 2 vehicles ahead of you, both booked and paid for. I can't bump them. That wouldn't be fair to them." He gestured to the van and the bench with waiting customers. "I'll be over to your bay the second I'm done here." The man's lip curled in disdain. "I'm not waiting," he said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek tablet, tapping furiously. "I'll just take my business elsewhere." Sam set down his rag. The shop had rules, first come, first served, with confirmed appointments honored. He crossed his arms. "You may, but You'll find we run a tight ship here. Feel free to try, but I'm busy." Silence rippled through the bay. Mechanics paused at their workstations, listening. Mia straightened, concern etching her youthful features. The luxury coupe's passenger door opened, and the man's assistant, a sharply dressed woman holding a leather portfolio, stepped out, offering Sam a brittle smile. "We just need a quick oil check," she said meekly. Sam shook his head. "Appointments are appointments. This is my garage. Respect that, and I'll respect your time." The man scowled, pressed a button on his tablet, then clipped it back into his jacket. Without another word, he strode through the shop toward the office door, assistant in tow. The heavy oak door thudded shut behind them, leaving the bay in uneasy stillness. Sam exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. He caught Mia's eye and forced a grin. "All right, let's get back to work." But even as he spoke, a nagging curiosity pricked at him. Who was this man who believed a luxury car and a sharp suit entitled him to jump the line? And why did something about his bearing feel so familiar? As the roar of air tools resumed, Sam returned under the van's hood. The morning grind pressed on. Lifts to lower, bolts to torque, customers to reassure. But now each turn of the wrench carried a new weight. The knowledge that today's routine might hold an unexpected twist, one that would challenge the very foundations of Brookside Auto Repair. The late morning sunlight slanted through the high windows of Brookside Auto Repair, illuminating floating dust motes and the spray of grease stains on the concrete floor. A low hum of impact wrenches and the hiss of the air compressor filled the air, punctuated by the occasional clang of a dropped socket. Sam Delgado stood at the center bay, wiping oil from his hands on a threadbare rag, when he heard a crisp click behind him, the heavy oak door to his office swinging open. He turned just in time to see the suited man stride out, followed by his assistant. The man's colleague, clearly unaccustomed to the shop's scents and sounds, flinched as a mechanic lowered a rust-speckled axle onto the lift. The customer's polished shoes clicked against the floor as he approached Sam, arms folded across his tailored jacket. "You," he said, voice clipped. "Me, now." He tapped the toe of one shoe. "I want you to explain why my car isn't being serviced first." Sam's chest tightened. He remembered how his grandfather used to say, "You run a fair shop or you don't run one at all." He leveled his gaze. "Sir, you're third in line. I've got appointments, all prepaid, all scheduled. If you didn't like the time slot, you should have booked earlier." The customer's nostrils flared. "I don't care about your schedule. I paid for 9 o'clock. It's noon." Sam took a breath, glancing at the wall-mounted clock, 12:05. "Your confirmation said 9 a.m. I pulled your parts and had your bay ready, but I had to finish the oil change and the steering inspection first. That's how we honor our commitments here." The man clenched his jaw. "I'll have you know I own more dealerships than you can count, and I expect VIP treatment." A hush fell. Mechanics paused in mid-wrench, apprentices straightened, and even the aging pot-bellied coffee maker seemed to stop gurgling. Sam looked around, saw Mia's worried face behind him, and straightened his shoulders. He'd built this place from his own blood and sweat, and he wasn't about to let some corporate hotshot steamroll him in his own shop. "VIP treatment," Sam repeated, his voice dropping low. "This is a local business, third generation. That means everyone, no matter who they are, gets treated the same, by the same rules. If you want special privileges, you can go somewhere else." He leaned forward, planting his gloved hands on the hood of the coupe. "This is my garage." The man's face went ashen for a moment. Then, recovering his composure, he raised his chin. "You'll regret this." He spun on his heel and marched back into Sam's office, slamming the door with such force that the glass frame rattled. For a breathless moment, complete silence reigned. Then, the pneumatic lift down the hall let out a startled hiss, and a mechanic dropped a socket with a clatter. Mia stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on Sam's shoulder. "Are you okay?" she whispered. Sam exhaled slowly, trying to calm the adrenaline pounding in his ears. He looked from bay to bay. The delivery van was parked neatly on its lift, its customer watching television in the waiting area. The Bennington sedan would be ready in 20 minutes. Mrs. Patel's minivan was already lowered from its brake pad inspection. Every car in the shop had a rightful place in line, but the coupe now sat idle, its hood open like an accusing eye. He straightened and called out, "All right, let's get back to work." His voice echoed, and slowly the shop resumed its rhythm. Impact wrenches whirred. Mechanics resumed torquing, and Mia glided to her bench to continue her apprentice tasks. Yet even as Sam turned back to the van, his heart thudded. He knew this man had power, the sort that could close doors, shift parts contracts, or flood the shop with legal notices. But he also knew something more vital. Respect earned through honesty and craftsmanship was the bedrock of his family's legacy. He finished the van's inspection and rolled it out of the bay, wiping sweat and grease from his forehead as he did so. 5 minutes later, the delivery driver returned with a grateful wave. "Thanks, Sam," he said, fishing car keys from his pocket. "You're a lifesaver." Sam handed back the keys. "Anytime. Drive safe." As the driver pulled away, Sam's gaze shifted to the closed office door. Something about the slammed door's echo reminded him that a reckoning was coming, one he could postpone only so long. He moved to the waiting bench and found the luxury coupe's business card lying face up. William Harrington, CEO, Valor Automotive Group. The embossed V gleamed under the fluorescent light. Sam picked it up and stared at it, memories of their confrontation flashing in his mind. He turned it over, thumb tracing the company letterhead, and felt a complex swirl of defiance and apprehension. This was no ordinary customer, and he was no ordinary mechanic. Summoning his courage, Sam slipped the card into his pocket and strode to the office door. He knocked firmly. "Mr. Harrington," he called through the wood, "we need to talk. I want to make this right." Silence. Then, a faint click, and the door cracked open. Harrington's pale eyes met Sam's, cool, appraising. The assistant hovered behind him, lips pressed into a thin line. 15 minutes, Harrington said, his tone measured. "Don't keep me waiting." With that, he yanked the door closed, leaving Sam standing in the narrow hallway. The muffled click of the lock sounded like a chime of fate. Sam straightened his cap, smoothed his grease-stained shirt, and took a steadying breath. In 15 minutes, he would enter that office and face the man whose company's badge he had nearly thrown back in his face. Back in the main bay, the day's pace resumed, but Sam's mind was already racing ahead. He crossed to Mia, who met his eyes with a steady nod. Together, they checked the schedule one more time, preparing every report, every part, every invoice. When the time came to knock again, Sam would be ready, not just as a mechanic, but as a steward of his family's reputation, prepared to stand his ground and, if necessary, turn that tension into an opportunity for respect and understanding. The late morning light in the waiting area of Brookside Auto Repair felt too bright, almost exposing. Sam Delgado sat at his desk, his palms braced on the laminated wood surface, staring at the closed door of his tiny office. He could hear the muffled clatter of sockets and the low hum of an impact wrench from the bays beyond. Cold sweat still clung to his forehead, where his hairline met the grease stains of the morning's work. A single envelope lay on the desk in front of him, stark white against the faded mahogany. Its edges were crisp, the paper heavy, the embossing of a silver crest gleaming under the overhead lamp. He reached for it with a tremor in his fingers, as though handling an unmarked box in a crime thriller. Part dread, part curiosity. He peeled the flap open. Inside was a single business card, perfectly centered. William Harrington, Chief Executive Officer, Valor Automotive Group. His breath caught. Sam knew Valor Automotive by reputation. Top-tier manufacturing, cutting-edge R&D, global dealer networks. Their cars were the kind his shop rarely saw. Machines of precision and prestige, cared for by factory-trained technicians in high-end showrooms. He'd always admired their engineering from afar, never imagining their CEO would grace his 3-bay garage. He lifted the card and examined it as if it were a fragile relic. The silver V crest was raised, cool beneath his thumb. The card's weight and quality spoke of power. Power he'd challenged only an hour ago by shouting, "This is my garage," at the very man who now held dominion over his industry. Images of their confrontation replayed in his mind. The stunned silence of his mechanics, the harsh echo of the oak door slamming shut, the look of thinly veiled anger that had flashed in the customer's eyes. Sam realized with a pang of horror that he'd nearly insulted William Harrington himself, reduced the global CEO to an impatient appointment holder in a grease-stained shop. He leaned his forehead against the cool wood of the desk and closed his eyes. In the silence, his pulse thundered. What consequences would follow? A bad Yelp review? A corporate complaint? Worse, cutting ties with Valor's parts supply. His shop depended on timely OEM deliveries for customers who prized authentic components. Yet beneath the fear burned another emotion: defiance. Sam thought back to his grandfather's words. In this shop, respect is earned by fairness and skill, not by fat wallet or fancy title. He'd lived by that creed every day of his working life. When the suited man had snapped, Sam had stood up not only for his shop's schedule, but for his family's honor. He drew a deep breath, wiped his palms on his overalls, and squared his shoulders. He would not cower, but he would also not compound his mistake. He needed to face this head on. Sam stood and tucked the card into the breast pocket of his grease-stained shirt. He smoothed out the front of his t-shirt, still faintly bearing the shop motto, "Quality first, always." He squared the brim of his cap in the mirror above the desk, caught a glimpse of his own determined reflection, and nodded once. He opened the office door and stepped into the hallway. The bay noises sharpened, the hiss of compressed air, the rumble of engines idling. Sam walked with measured steps toward the customer's bay at the far end, each footfall echoing. His heart pounded, but his jaw was set. As he neared the luxury coupe, he saw it again. The glossy black paint, the gleam of custom wheels, the carbon fiber spoiler that spoke of speed and status. William Harrington was leaning over the open hood, eyes fixed on the chrome-plated engine components. His posture was cool and controlled, like a conductor before an orchestra. The assistant hovered several paces back, silent and composed. Sam stopped a few feet away. Harrington glanced up, surprise flickering across his pale features. Sam swallowed, then said clearly, "Mr. Harrington, may I have a word?" Harrington's thin lips pressed together. "Make it quick," he replied, his tone clipped but not entirely hostile. Sam nodded. He knelt by the front bumper, setting his tool bag on the concrete, and pulled out the embossed card. "I found this in my office," he said, voice steady. He held the card carefully between two fingers, as though it were a delicate artifact. "I realize now who you are, and I want to apologize for my words." Harrington watched him in silence. The assistant's eyes darted between Sam's face and the card. "I shouldn't have barked at you like that," Sam continued, rising to stand eye level with the CEO. "I lost sight of courtesy in my own shop. My family's run Brookside for 70 years, on fairness and respect. I let my temper get the better of me, and I'm sorry." Harrington's gaze narrowed. A flicker of something, respect perhaps, passed in his eyes. He closed the hood, wiped his hands on his jacket's sleeve, and studied Sam's face. "You're sincere?" and he asked. Sam met his gaze without flinching. "I am. I value my customers, every single one. And I value my shop's reputation. I never want to be rude to anyone, especially not the CEO of a company whose vehicles I serve." Harrington paused, then inclined his head once. "All right," he said quietly. "I appreciate that." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a card of his own. Sleek, corporate, but similar in heft. He handed it to Sam. "Call me at this number. I want to talk about how we can keep vehicles like mine serviced by shops that share your integrity." Sam's heart leapt. He closed his hand around the card, feeling its embossed weight. "Thank you," he said, voice thick. "I'd welcome that conversation." Harrington turned back to the hood of his coupe. "I'll have my assistant schedule the formalities. In the meantime, let's get this car looked at properly." Sam nodded and picked up his tool bag. As he moved to the front of the car, Harrington slipped back to the driver's seat and closed the passenger door with a soft click. The assistant stepped forward, pulling a tablet from her portfolio and nodding for Sam to proceed. As he knelt and popped the hood release latch for real this time, Sam felt a surge of relief tempered by excitement. The morning's confrontation had threatened to unravel his shop's future, but his apology and Harrington's unexpected olive branch had transformed a potential disaster into an opportunity. He caught a glimpse of his reflection in the coupe's polished fender, gritty overalls, flecks of grease, and a determined set to his jaw. He grinned, heart steadying. Today, he had stood his ground. Today, he had shown respect. Today, he had built a bridge to Valor Automotive itself. He opened the hood fully and let the engine docilely rest in its cradle of polished chrome and steel. The engine bay was immaculate, a fitting reflection of the precision for which Valor was famed. Sam found the dipstick, wiped it clean, and prepared to check the oil level, determined to give the CEO the same careful attention he would any customer. In that moment, Sam Delgado understood something profound. Respect was not demanded by title or status. It was earned by transparency, by owning one's mistakes, and by the skill with which one turned those mistakes into moments of trust. And Brookside Auto Repair, under his watch, would continue to earn that respect. one engine bay at a time. The moment William Harrington settled into the driver's seat of his gleaming Valor coupe, Sam Delgado felt a surge of both relief and anticipation. The initial confrontation in the office had passed without legal threats or angry ultimatums. Instead, it had yielded an unexpected invitation. Show him what makes Brookside Auto Repair exceptional. Sam slipped off his grease-smudged cap and offered a hand to Harrington. Ready? He asked. Harrington nodded, face composed but curious. Together, they stepped into the bright midday sunlight of the shop bay. Mia Nguyen, Sam's apprentice, emerged from under the lift where she'd been working on a customer's minivan. She carried Sam's digital diagnostic tablet and a fresh pair of latex gloves. "Mr. Delgado," she called softly, "I've uploaded the van's data. The brake rotor readings look perfect. No warping detected." She tapped the tablet screen and swiped through a series of graphs showing pad thickness and heat signatures. Sam gave a quick nod of approval. "Great work, Mia. Thank you." Then he turned back to Harrington. "That van's done. Let's get started on yours." Harrington watched with interest as Sam braced his shoulders, clipped on a pair of protective goggles, and popped open the coupe's hood. The polished engine bay gleamed under the shop's LED fixtures. Carbon fiber intake runners, anodized valve covers, and a compact turbocharger assembly attested to Valor's engineering finesse, and raised the stakes for the shop's first impression on the CEO himself. 1. Initial inspection and oil analysis. Sam began with a visual sweep, checking for leaks, loose hoses, or worn belts. He pointed at the braided fuel line near the firewall. No fraying, good clamps. Valor does a solid job here. Next, he withdrew the oil dipstick, wiped it clean, and reinserted it to test surface level and color. "Slightly darker than ideal," he murmured, "but viscosity is within spec." He handed the dipstick to Harrington. "Hey, here, see how the film clings? If it were breaking down, you'd get streaks." Harrington leaned in, fascination replacing his earlier stiffness. "I never realized you could tell so much just from the dipstick," he admitted. Sam grinned. "Oil analysis is a quick window into the engine's health, but I recommend sending a sample to the lab for spectroscopic testing. Detects metal particles before they become a problem." He tapped the spot on the dipstick where the film was thinnest. "I'll prepare that today." 2. Computerized diagnostics. With the oil test complete, Sam wheeled over the shop's aftermarket OBD2 scanner and connected it to the port under the steering column. Mia brought the tablet and opened the proprietary Valor software module Sam had purchased last year. Together, they ran a live scan of the ECU. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. Live RPM feed, turbo boost pressure, coolant temperature, misfire counts, lambda sensor readings. "Everything looks nominal," Sam narrated. "No pending codes, fuel trims are within plus 1%, and your peak boost hits 18 psi right on schedule." Harrington studied the numbers with quiet intensity. "And the lambda readings? What's acceptable there?" Sam tapped the graph. "Between 14.71 and 14.9.1, air-fuel ratio is ideal. Yours bounced between 14.8 and 14.85 under load." "Perfect." Mia chimed in. "The knock sensor isn't tripping, so your timing map is spot on. No unnecessary retardation." Impressed, Harrington leaned back. "You've got real experts here." 3. Brake and suspension check. Next, Sam signaled to his lead technician, Jose, who rolled the coupe onto a hydraulic lift. The car rose smoothly, revealing high-performance Brembo calipers, painted Valor red. Sam removed each wheel, inspecting the 6-piston calipers, cross-drilled rotors, and ceramic compound brake pads. Pad wear is minimal, about 2 mm left on the trailing edge, he concluded, and rotors have only 0.2 mm runout, well under the 0.5 mm threshold. He pointed to the drilled holes. Valor's design vents heat exceptionally, but we'll bed the pads with a 2-stage burnish cycle to remove any glaze. Under the car, he checked sway bar links, control arm bushings, and strut mounts. Suspension geometry is factory perfect. No uneven bushing tear, no steering play, but I recommend fresh alignment after your next tire rotation to maintain even wear. Harrington watched Sam's every move, noting how deftly his hands moved, how softly he spoke to Mia and Jose, and how thoroughly he applied every gauge and measuring. Tool 4. Performance tuning demonstration. Once mechanical checks were complete, Sam rolled the coupe down from the lift and onto the shop's rolling road dynamometer. The sound of the engine spun up the thrumming heart of the shop. Sam and Harrington moved behind a plexiglass partition to review the live dyno readout. Sam explained, "I've programmed a custom performance map that balances power and longevity. Let me show you." He attached a laptop to the ECU and loaded the tuning software. On the screen, two graphs overlaid, the factory map in green and Sam's map in blue. Under the blue curve, peak torque rose by 8 lb-ft at mid-range RPM, while top-end horsepower remained factory-safe. He guided Harrington's finger to the subtle bump in the mid-curve. And this little tweak uses the stock intercooler's extra capacity without pushing internal parts beyond spec. You get more throttle response off the line and retain factory reliability. Harrington nodded slowly. And that's exactly what our road test teams wanted. More feeling without sacrificing service intervals. He glanced at Sam. "How'd you develop this?" Sam shrugged modestly. "A dozen hours on the dyno, some late nights in my home garage. I've been fine-tuning Valor units for years." He pinpointed another area. "If we add a mild flat-foot shift calibration, you'll chop turbo lag and smooth out shift transitions." Interested? A slow smile spread across Harrington's face. "Absolutely. Let's do it." 5. Final walkthrough and partnership seeds. As the engine cooled, Jose reinstalled the wheels, torqued them to spec, and lowered the car. Sam wiped down the fenders, restoring the mirror finish shine. He handed Harrington a printed service report. Oil analysis pending, pads glazed and replaced burnish cycle, sync of custom tune file, diagnostic codes clear, and a summary of suggested alignment and future maintenance intervals. Harrington read each line, then looked up at Sam. "This is the most thorough service I've ever experienced," he said quietly. "I intended to audit one shop. I've found a partner." He extended his hand. Sam shook firmly, feeling the transaction shift from customer-vendor to collaborator. "It's an honor," Sam said. "If you'd like, we can discuss a more formal arrangement. Brookside is an official Valor-authorized service center." The CEO's eyes lit up. "Let's make it happen." Later that afternoon, as the deck lights flickered on and evening settled over Brookside, Sam and Mia watched the coupe glide out of the bay, its engine note a satisfied purr, its owner behind the wheel offering a respectful nod. In the shop's stillness, Sam set down his wrench and looked at Mia. "We did good today," she smiled, proud. "We built something bigger than a tune-up." Sam nodded. "We built respect and a partnership that'll carry Brookside into the future." And as the last taillights faded into the sunset, Brookside Auto Repair closed its doors on a day when a mechanic and a CEO turned wrenches together and forged a new foundation for both their worlds. The September morning air felt crisp as Sam Delgado drove out of Brookside Auto Repair's lot toward Valor Automotive Group's headquarters. The sun hadn't yet crested the horizon, but the sky was already painted in lavender and gold. His pickup's engine purred beneath him, a familiar reassurance before stepping into the sleek and, to him, slightly intimidating world of corporate automotive innovation. As he rounded the final bend, the sprawling Valor campus came into view. Glass-paneled office towers reflected the dawn, and a modern low-slung test track looped gracefully through landscaped courtyards. As he parked in the designated partner visitor spot, Sam took a deep breath, smoothed his grease-stained shirt, and stepped out. Today, he would formalize the partnership proposal that William Harrington had first floated in the service bay. Arrival and first impressions. The lobby was a cathedral of polished chrome and white marble. Tall light fixtures arced like metallic trees overhead, their LED leaves glowing softly. Receptionists in charcoal gray uniforms greeted him by name as he passed. Sam's heart pounded. This was worlds away from the concrete floors and oil stains of Brookside, but he squared his shoulders and reminded himself of the skills and integrity that had earned him this invitation. Moments later, Harrington appeared at the top of an escalator, his suit impeccably tailored, a welcoming smile on his face. "Sam, welcome," he said, clapping a hand to Sam's shoulder. "I hope the drive was smooth." "Like a well-tuned engine, sir," Sam replied, a touch of humor easing his nerves. They walked side by side through a glass corridor overlooking the test track, where prototype models of Valor's next-generation electric sedans glided along in silence. Engineers in lab coats tapped away at touchscreen panels beside the track, gathering real-time telemetry on battery temperature and motor torque. Tour of R&D and the test track. Harrington led Sam into a high-ceilinged R&D hangar, where chassis skeletons were suspended from overhead rails. Here's where our design teams and electrical engineers collaborate, Harrington explained. A team of technicians hovered around a half-built EV platform, adjusting wiring harnesses and lithium-ion modules. Sam watched in fascination as a robotic arm gently fitted battery cells into the underfloor pack. I wanted you to see how data from your shop, real-world service metrics, will feed back into our design process. They stepped out onto a raised catwalk overlooking the test track. Beyond the track's curves, a small amphitheater was set up with folding chairs and a dais. Later today, we'll hold the official signing ceremony, Harrington said. But first, I thought you'd enjoy a hot lap demonstration. Sam hesitated. He wasn't a race car driver, but Harrington insisted. Moments later, Sam found himself buckled into a prototype Valor SUV, its dashboard a seamless glass panel awash with performance readouts. The vehicle accelerated with a barely audible hum, hugging the track's banked turn with effortless grace. Sam's heart pounded in his chest. This was a far cry from Brookside's dyno days, but he grinned as the SUV glided back to the pit. Incredible, he breathed, signing the partnership agreement. In the amphitheater, representatives from Valor's dealer network, legal counsel, and marketing team gathered. A long table on the dais was draped with Brookside's red and black logo alongside Valor's silver crest. Harrington opened a leather-bound folder and slid Sam his copy of the agreement. Brookside Auto Repair would become the first Valor-authorized service center, receiving exclusive training, software updates, and priority parts supply. In return, Sam's shop would uphold Valor's service standards, share maintenance data, and participate in customer outreach programs. As Sam scanned the document, his eyes lingered on the clause pledging community involvement. Annual Valor Cares car clinics for local high school students interested in automotive careers. He recalled Mia's bright grin and the pride he felt when his family shop first joined forces. He looked up at Harrington. I'm honored, and I promise we'll exceed your expectations. Harrington extended a pen inscribed with the Valor crest. Welcome aboard, Sam. Training and knowledge exchange. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of technical sessions. Valor's chief technical officer led a workshop on advanced diagnostic protocols, teaching Sam and his 2 lead technicians how to interpret the latest ECU fault codes and over-the-air software patching procedures. The training room's walls were lined with exploded engine diagrams and holographic displays, tools Sam never dreamed he'd use in a small-town garage. Meanwhile, Valor's human resources team outlined the dealer network's customer service ethos. How every service appointment began with a digital vehicle intake sheet. How technicians would wear branded uniforms and share follow-up reports via an online portal. Sam asked pointed questions about maintaining a personal touch in a highly digital system. He feared losing the warm, familiar rapport he'd built with his neighbors. To his relief, Valor embraced a hybrid approach. Automated reminders balanced with handwritten thank you notes and regular community barbecues. Community launch event. That evening, back in Brookside, Sam spearheaded the first Valor Cares clinic at the local high school's auto shop. He'd invited students, parents, and local veterans from the shop floor for a hands-on workshop. How to perform basic brake inspections and oil changes. Mia and 2 other mechanics, now officially Valor certified, guided groups of excited teens as they practiced on donated demo engines. Sam stood at the front, fielding questions about career paths and telling the story of his morning at Valor HQ. At the end of the clinic, Principal Bradley of Brookside High shook Sam's hand. This is exactly the kind of opportunity our students need, she said, her eyes shining. But thank you for bringing Valor here. Sam realized the full circle of their work. A CEO who saw the value in a family shop, and a mechanic who refused to compromise on respect and excellence. The next morning at Brookside Auto Repair, the Valor Authorized Service Center plaque gleamed on the wall beside the shop's original Quality First Always sign, a testament to how 2 worlds had merged. Looking ahead. As the sun set beyond the garage doors for the final time that day, Sam took stock of his journey. From the tense, "This is my garage" showdown to the refined corridors of Valor HQ. He'd grown, not just as a mechanic, but as a leader in his community. He updated the shop's website with Valor's logo, trained his entire team on the new digital intake system, and arranged for monthly tech webinars with Valor's engineers. Most importantly, he rekindled the shop's founding principle: respect earned through skill, fairness, and an open mind. And as he cleaned his tools and locked up for the night, Sam Delgado knew that whatever the future held, electric drivetrains, autonomous diagnostics, or bits of AI assisting his wrench, Brookside Auto Repair would thrive, powered by the solid foundation of collaboration he had forged with Valor Automotive Group.